Good evening and welcome to Freedom is a Constant Struggle, hosted by
Kilu Nyasha and engineered by
Najada Handakich. We will bring you history and news of liberation struggles throughout the world. Kilu will interview activists involved with issues such as the war, poverty, the prison system, political prisoners, the healthcare system, as well as many other issues and how they affect you. This is a live show. We would love to hear any questions or comments you have, so please call in at 415-621-4473. We will open our live lines in about 10 minutes, so feel free to call in. Tonight we are very pleased to have as our guest Charles Bourdon, attorney for Francisco Torres in this 37-year-old case. Collectively, the San Francisco 8 are a group of Black Panthers and community activists who have devoted their lives to serving people and making a difference. While conspiracy charges have been dropped against 5 of the defendants, effectively freeing Richard ONeal, lawyers argued in court on February 7th to have the same charges dropped against the remaining 3 defendants. For more information, please go to www.freethesf8.org. And now, here's Kilu.
Thank you, Najada. And welcome, Charles Bourdon, to Freedom is a Constant Struggle. I'm delighted to have you here. And let's just go right away and discuss your participation and activism in the case of the San Francisco 8. Just a brief description of how you got involved in the case.
Well, thank you for inviting me to your show. It's a pleasure to be here. I've been involved in the case actually since before the brothers were arrested, when I learned that there was an investigation going on back in 2000 into cold case resurrections that had to do with the Ingleside homicide case and the Park Station bombing. So I became involved at that time and started an investigation of a collective of lawyers to find out what was going on, what kind of investigations were being made and for what purpose. So we've been tracking this for some time, and of course it wasn't until last January that the arrest warrants were issued for the San Francisco 8.
Right, but prior to that, in 2003, several of the brothers were indicted by a grand jury. Would you discuss that and who the brothers were who were indicted at that time and became known as the grand jury resistors?
Right. Actually, no one was indicted. That was an investigative grand jury, and several people were subpoenaed to testify.
Right. I'm sorry. Yes, subpoenaed is the word I should have said.
And questions were being asked, and inappropriate inquiries were being made, and several of the individuals who, some of whom later became defendants in the San Francisco 8, resisted by refusing to answer questions and surrendering their constitutional rights, and therefore were locked up until such time as the grand jury retired.
And one of them was John Bowman, who is now deceased, and were he alive, it would have been a case of the San Francisco 9.
That's quite true.
Right.
There's no doubt at all that John would have been part of this group of individuals who were arrested and prosecuted. Yes,
and I would just like to inject that J.B. was a wonderful brother. I knew him. We met way back in '69 in New Haven, in the New Haven chapter of the Black Panther Party, when he was deployed there for a spell. He's greatly missed.
Everybody that I know who knew John feels the same way.
Right. Well, yesterday, all 8 brothers were in court. Herman Bell, Ray Boudreau, Richard Brown, Richard ONeal, Harold Taylor, and who did I leave out?
Well, Francisco Torres.
Francisco Torres, your client.
That's
right.
Great.
And they were all in court yesterday because the conspiracy charges were not dropped against 3 of the defendants, but 5 of the defendants had the conspiracy charge dropped, which virtually freed Richard ONeal. Would you describe what happened in court yesterday with regard to the effort to have the charges, conspiracy charges, count 2, dropped against the Herman Bell, Francisco Torres, and Jalil Muntakim, also known as Tony Bottom?
Yes. In 1973, the statute of limitations for conspiracy to commit murder was 3 years. There was a provision in the law, and there still is a provision in the law, that if someone is outside of the state, the statute of limitations does not begin to run until such time, or during the time only when the person is within the state. That's called tolling of the statute of limitations. The five brothers who were released from count two, or had count two dismissed against them, were all undeniably within the state of California for more than 3 years following the alleged conspiracy to commit murder. And so there was no contest really about the statute of limitations having run with respect to those individuals, and therefore count two, conspiracy to commit murder, was dismissed against them. With respect to the other three defendants, Jaleel and Herman and Francisco, because they were outside of the state of California, they were in either in custody or, in Francisco's case, living quite openly in New York, but technically speaking within the statute that says because they were not in California, the statute of limitations was not running. Now, obviously, that seems quite ridiculous and grossly unfair, and the California State Legislature felt that unlimited tolling also was inappropriate, and so in 1984, the legislature passed a law that basically said that you can extend the statute. It's not really extending the statute, it's causing the statute not to begin to run, the tolling provision, but only up to a maximum of 3 years. And that gives the prosecution the extra time that might be needed, inherent in the notion that someone is outside the state. But it would be unreasonable to extend that beyond a 3-year limit on the tolling period. So because the legislature changed that law to put a limit on the tolling period, it's called a remedial statute and should have what we call retroactive application. And so the arguments in court yesterday was basically to dismiss count two against the remaining 3 defendants because it was the legislature's intent that the tolled statute of limitations should not exceed 3 years.
Right.
That's the
and the judge, as I understand it, is going to give a written response come February 13th. When you're back in court, hopefully the decision will come down then, and then hopefully it'll be in our favor.
Yes, I think it will be, and certainly I think the law supports that, and Judge Moscone is a very fair and very deliberate man, and he didn't say he would absolutely have a decision by then. We're hoping, because we do have an appearance next week, that we will have a decision by that time.
Right.